Okay, guys, I wanted to make this video because I've had two topics on my mind recently that have been kind of bouncing around in my head for a couple weeks now. And um, the two topics are the role and growth of social media in our society and how I believe it's been a mostly negative contributor to a lot of issues that we have now in our society. The other issue I was thinking about was the unhappiness of young men in today's society. When I mean young men, I mean um, young teenage boys, probably you know early as 14, 15, 16, all the way up to late 20s, early 30s, and even mid 30s. And that's the one I really wanted to cover more today, and kind of, I don't know, kind of address some points that I may be totally wrong on. I may be misinformed about some of these things because I don't know everything. I don't claim to, but once you've been around a while, you start to notice some patterns, and I kind of wanted to, bring some of these to the discussion and really get an idea for if what I'm seeing is correlating to reality or not. Now, I made this aesthetic choice for a reason, but I feel like it's a pretty serious topic and one that doesn't really get discussed at all. Aside from what I would consider cringy things like dudes who go way too far with some of this stuff, and I don't mean like the whole incel culture or that label, which I don't really like that label very much. There is the other group, men going their own way. I think that's a bit extreme, to be honest. But let's take it from the beginning, from what I was thinking, and that is when I was growing up, I had this very naive kind of optimistic outlook about how the world and things would be when I got older. And one of those things was that everyone would be able to find what they're good at and make a life, a career out of it, and everything would be hunky dory. But as we've seen, and you've maybe experienced it yourself, that's not really how things have gone. And when you look at previous generations and you see that these dudes generally, for the most part, at around our age range, the I'm going to say 16 to 35 age range. Some people would say 18 to 35, but I'm going to go as far back as 16. When you look at that age group in our previous generations, they are markedly different in their behavior, their outlook on the world, and how they think of things as compared to us. Um, if you've been on the internet for any length of time, there is a general subculture, sub thing of saying, "Oh yeah, man, I'm depressed." Isn't it? What a thing, right? And you kind of make a joke about it. You say, "Oh yeah, my life is so shit." And while it's fun to take it lightly and make fun of it and make your memes, your Pepe memes, there is, I think, an underlying kind of truth to that, in a sense that a lot of these young dudes really are dissatisfied where they're at in life. And that can be for a number of reasons, but I would say one of the biggest reasons for dissatisfaction among these young men is they can't figure out what they're good at. They can't figure out, even if they do know what they're good at, they can't figure out necessarily how to make that work for them. They lack guidance. They lack a strong male figure in the family, right? A strong male figure growing up, someone that they can aspire to use as a role model. And I don't mean just comic book characters either. I mean an actual person there with them, whether it be a father, uncle, church pastor, even some kind of strong male role model that was there for them. I believe that's sorely lacking a lot in today's society, and if we see some of the research even shows that the divorce rate is it's pretty high, higher than it's been in pretty much most of our history. So it the phenomenon of a single mother is way more common than I think it should be right now, and it's kind of sad. Parents can't stay together for whatever reason. Maybe it's irreconcilable differences between the parents. It could be they were in way over their heads. They made a mistake. Whatever the reason is, it's not so much important as the fact that the parents are not staying together. And in most cases, the dad loses custody of the children, and he's basically not in their lives anymore, or at least in any significant way. So what I've noticed in talking with a lot of these guys in this age range, and that applies to a lot of you guys out there too, is you're a bit distant from your father. Either you didn't know him, he wasn't part of your life, he was a bad aspect of your life, something, he just wasn't there, or he wasn't there in the ways that he needed to be. And I've just noticed that as being a common trend, and it's kind of sad. Not sad in a bad way, but sad in a tragic way that I feel I was lucky enough to have my dad with me all throughout my growing up, and he wasn't perfect, that's for sure. I've definitely learned a lot from his mistakes and his actions, and how he treated me has definitely affected who I am today, that's for sure. So to say that a father figure doesn't have a significant influence on a young man growing up, I think is very wrong. I think the absence of a father figure has a profound effect on how young men develop, grow, and really how a lot of their life is going to turn out to be. And I've seen this time and time again. A lot of my male friends who are having issues right now, they're just, for some reason or another, they can't get life to work for them. And I've definitely been there myself. I had some pretty dark times in my life before I got my shit together, and I'm at where I'm at now. And really that lack of guidance, that presence is so important. I can't understate that enough. So given that, and the changing societal pressures on the view of men in general has been not very helpful when it comes to that. So you'll often see times where the prevailing idea is that men are bad, men are predators, men are this or that and the other, and let's just face reality and say that in general, society does not value a man in the same way that it values a woman, right? So we've seen this time and time again all throughout history. There is a reason why pretty much the majority of armies, nations, leaders, and stuff like that have been men. So there's a whole mess of reasons why that is, but there's a lot on our plate, basically, for men to be expected to do. But at the same time, when you do some of those things, there are elements of society who say that you're bad for doing that, and it gets confusing if you don't have a solid foundation for yourself, in the sense of you know who you are, you know what your worth is. it can become very confusing because you have these conflicting forces telling you that you should be one thing, and then society telling you that you should be another thing, or you should feel ashamed for being that thing that you were supposed to be. It's all very confusing. But what it comes down to is when you're fighting those contesting forces, if you have guidance, if you have a strong male figure growing up, that person can tell you, hey, this is how things actually are, and you shouldn't worry about what those people are saying about you. Which is definitely the case of what happened with me growing up. I had some times where I was very confused because I had a very naive outlook on life and how things should be. So normally, when I ran into a situation that did not line up with what I expected the world to be, I was pretty distraught. I was destroyed. It hurt me emotionally, and having my dad there to tell me, how things are, at least from his perspective, his experience, being able to draw from his experience, was a very large stabilizing factor in how I turned out into who I am today. So, but a lot of these young men today don't have that in their lives, and the question remains: well, how do we go from there? How do we solve this issue of these young men feeling like they don't have a purpose? They're basically wandering, but they have all this energy inside of them, this natural energy that they have because they're young men. Young men want to go and do things. They want to have value. They want to contribute to society for the most part. They want to go and do things, and this has always been the case with every generation of men. Young men, they want to go out and they want to do things. They want to contribute to society. They want to feel like they have value. They want to feel like they're valued. And in a lot of cases, this value was proven and given to them. This purpose was given to them by, unfortunately, warfare. Okay, so if you look, even just the past 100 years, 110 years American history, we've had constant wars. So you had young men going off, Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam right after that, various skirmishes all over the world, Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan, although arguably less Iraq and Afghanistan as having a good purpose to go to war, but that's a whole other story, right? So that's just one example of where those wars could serve as an outlet for all that energy that these young men have. They have a purpose to go and do something and add value to themselves and to society. So how do we do that today with our current generation, that to prevent them from these young men going absolutely stir crazy, trying to figure out what they're supposed to do in life and how to do it when they have no good advice, no good guidance. They have constant, struggles with women, family members, friends, work, whatever you want to call it, right? They have issues. So what I think is there needs to be a re-emphasis on having that guidance, that strong male figure in their lives, to basically be the dad that they never had. I think it's so important. And you can definitely see this kind of story play out in a lot of movies, books, media, whatever you want to call it. Take Karate Kid, for instance, right? That kid, his instructor, his teacher, was basically that strong male figure in his life. And, even though it is just a story, look at what he accomplished. So that's kind of a weak example, but the point stands. These young men, they have all this positive energy. They want to go and do things, and they need that guidance. They need that mentor. They need that purpose in their life as a goal to say, hey, I have value. I'm contributing something to society. I'm worth something. I have a purpose to go and do things. Um, so it's very important to have a mentor that can guide you in that direction to kind of sort your shit out, basically. Get your shit together. And the older I get, the more I see this, and the more I wish I was able to pull from my experience and put it together and kind of help people who are in this situation. Um, I'm just going to be straight up. It's not, men are not like women in the sense that if a woman is pretty enough, she can just decide one day, well, I'm just going to get married to some guy and I'll be set for life. My purpose is pretty easy to figure out if I want it to be that way. It's very easy for women to do that, and it's not a slight against them. It's just how society is, and I don't expect that to change. But with men, if you decide one day I just want to give up and I just want somebody to take care of me, no one's going to be there for you. No one, society will not come and save you. You must save yourself. So that gets into one of the big principles in my life, which is self-sufficiency. Being self-sufficient is so important to me because I feel like if I'm self-sufficient, if I know my value, if I know my worth, if I know I have certain skills that are marketable, valuable to myself and society at large, then everything else that comes after that is gravy. I don't need anything else from anyone to feel secure emotionally, spiritually for myself. It's not easy to get there. It definitely took me a while, a lot of effort, a lot of soul seeking, a lot of reflection to get to that point, and I'm still not even where I want to be. But getting on that path of self-sufficiency, knowing that you are a valuable person, that you have talent, skills that are unique to yourself that a lot of other people don't have, and being able to have the guidance to recognize what it is, and have the guidance to go and do it, and that'll become your purpose, to become self-sufficient. And everything else after that, if you want to be filthy rich, if you want to be if you want to have a nice girlfriend, if you want to have a nice car, you want to have all these nice things, you have to start with yourself, and you have to be self-sufficient. Because if you don't have that strong foundation, then it's shaky or it's unstable, and you'll go right back to step one. I've seen it time and time again. So but society doesn't like that very much, does it? Society doesn't like it when you have a guy who can stand there and just say, well, I don't need any of you. I'm perfectly fine on my own. See ya. They don't like that very much, and I've gotten a lot of flack for that myself. I've had a lot of people say to me, well, why are you such a loner? Why do you have such strong opinions about things? Why are you so opinionated? Why can't you just be nice with everyone? Why can't you do this? Why can't you be this way? Well, it's because I don't need to. I just don't. I'll do what I need to do. I'll do what I feel like I need to do. I don't have to do what what other people feel I should. Broadly speaking, of course, if you have a boss for your job, you kind of have to do what he says, but that goes with the territory. But once you get to that point where people start saying, they start being hostile to your level of self-sufficiency, that's when you've made some progress. So, those are really the big points I've noticed is there's so much untapped potential within this generation of young men who arguably have had it better than any other generation before. We have all this awesome technology, we have all these opportunities, we have a lot of stuff that older generations did not, and it's sitting here not being used, not being utilized, and it's going to waste. And when you have all this pent up potential energy just sitting there, it bottles up and it manifests negatively. And in some of the worst cases, you'll see you'll see it manifest in ways like, I hate to use the phrase, but incels, okay? You get those dudes who just go off the rails, and when you, and not all of these incel dudes who have committed, horrible acts are necessarily that way just because of all that pent up energy. There are still crazy people in the world, legitimately crazy on their own. But seeing these incel types, seeing the dudes who throw thousands of dollars at Twitch thoughts, e-girls, premium Snapchats, all this stuff, right? It's because there's an untapped potential there, and they have just not been guided the correct way. And because a lot of these dudes are actually pretty intelligent. And I'll use the example of a Magic the Gathering tournament, okay? So if you've ever been to one of these, the general thing is you'll find a lot of dudes who probably don't have the best hygiene, don't dress very well, are not very socially adept. They've got a lot of issues basically. But some of them are genuinely smart individuals who can figure a lot of stuff out, have great analytical skills, have they can solve problems basically, and that kind of skill set can be utilized in so many ways. But they have to have the correct guidance and drive to go and do that. So, I mean, there have been so many cases where I had no idea what I was doing. Talking to girls, dating girls, dressing correctly for a date, all that stuff. I had no idea what I was doing until another, usually older male friend of mine told me, "Hey, man, you're doing it all wrong. You need to do it like this, and let me show you why." And I learned so much from that that it really makes you advance in levels in a way that you probably couldn't get on your own just from teaching yourself through experience. Sometimes you need that outside source of information to get you where you want to be. So I genuinely believe pretty much everyone has the potential to be better than they are right now. Even the stereotypical like fat neckbeard basement dweller dude, if he actually took the time to improve his life situation, work out, eat correctly, basically do everything that he's supposed to do, if only someone had told him, I genuinely believe those people would have a lot more opportunities. They would be a lot happier with themselves, and we as a society would advance a lot more. Because if every individual is stronger for themselves, then the group as a whole is stronger for it. So all this I don't know, angst, if you want to call it, within this young age range is it's kind of sad to see sometimes, because I really do wish that these guys would get the guidance they need, that they've been craving, that they've sorely missed growing up, and really realize the true potential that they have. Up until the point where you're comfortable with. Not everybody has the same ambition, not everybody has the same drive to do things, but everyone can always be better at some point. And I generally believe if you have someone guiding you in that direction, then it's a lot easier than just hoofing it on your own. So that's generally the way I approach things. This is all just my perspective on the thing. I could be totally way off the mark, but it's just something I've noticed. Wow, that sounds really serious, huh? I don't want to make it all sound all doom and gloom, but those are just some patterns I've noticed. And I like a good depression meme every once in a while, sure, but to do it all the time and to claim that you're doing it ironically is it's a sign that you're probably in one of these groups that have just that pent up angst, and basically you're wandering in life without a purpose, and it's sad. Because you can do so much more. You can accomplish a lot, you know. So that was really my thoughts on the topic and the general angst, I guess, of this age group. Young males, 16 to 35. The lack of a strong male figure, father figure in their life, I think, is the biggest contributor to that, definitely. How often do you hear the stories of oh, my dad took me to the strip club for my first lap dance? Like, how many times do you hear about that these days? You don't really. How many times have we been just, our hearts have been warmed by the story of a dad going fishing out with his son, or the dad taking his son out to go shooting, for the first time, taking out a 22, right? Going hunting with your dad, doing stuff with your dad, just in general. How much of that have we lost these days, and we just don't see anymore, And there were definitely some things that I wish my dad had taught me, for sure. But my dad's a big nerd, so he didn't necessarily get along with the women too well either. So I missed out on a lot growing up because I grew up as a big nerd too. Still kind of am. So and looking at all those things that make me feel wholesome, feel like that's what I need to go do. That's what a man should do. It has reinforced my desire, my need to be stronger for myself, to be self-sufficient in the sense so that way I can actually go and pursue the purpose, the goal that I want. And one of those goals is have a family, have kids, and raise them how I would want them to be raised, basically. So, I want to be that good dad. I want to be, the cool dad. I want to be the dad that growing up as a teenager, they would absolutely hate me, but later on in life, they would thank me for it. There's something very wholesome about that. Bringing a life into the world and raising it in such a way that you've done good. You've done a good job. You've molded someone into a worthwhile individual who, is very thankful for what you've done for them. So, I'm not saying they have to be a slave or anything like that. It's not what it's about. But getting to those wholesome moments, as to what a man should be, what a man should do, his purpose in life, and getting there is pretty important to me. And I think, even though we don't talk about it very much, I think pretty much all these dudes I'm talking about in this age range, they want that too. They want those wholesome moments. They want that purpose. They want to feel like they're worth something. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on it. And this video is going on way too long. It's almost 30 minutes now. But it's been rummaging around in my brain for a while now, and I kind of wanted to just get my thoughts out there. I probably won't publish this too far and wide because it feels very disorganized to me, and I could be totally wrong about all of this stuff. So that, and I don't really feel like exposing a lot of my inner thoughts out there too much, but this one was floating around in my brain for a while, and I figured I'd share it with you guys. So take it for what you will. Maybe you get some really good advice out of this. Maybe it gets you thinking a little bit. It's food for thought, basically. And hopefully it starts you on, or already helps you on your track to make yourself a better person, and to find that self-sufficiency, find that purpose, find what you're good at, make something of yourself in as much as you want to, and really get yourself out of those dark times in your life where you really don't want to go back to. Because we've all been there, and just as sure as I've gotten out of it, I think pretty much anyone can too. So yeah, that's my whole thoughts on the matter. I'm probably just gonna end it there. So, food for thought. Let me know what you guys think, and if what I'm saying correlates to what you've seen, your experiences, I'll be glad to hear it, because this kind of thing doesn't get talked about hardly at all, and it's something I would like to see more discussion about. So, yeah, that's all I got for that, and I'll be making another video on the whole social media thing at a different time when I have a little bit more energy in me, but it's getting kind of late, so I'll come back to you guys with that another time.